Night fell over the ocean. Where the sky meets the water, a boundless darkness stretches, illuminated only by the pale light of the moon. In this abyss, amidst thousands of kilometers of emptiness, a plane once vanished, piloted by a woman who became a symbol of courage, daring, and mystery. Her name was Amelia Earhart. Amelia's name is whispered sometimes with admiration, sometimes with awe, and sometimes even with fear. After all, her story is more than just the tale of an outstanding pilot determined to conquer the skies. It's a mystery, intertwining dream and tragedy, courage and mysticism, truth and legend. Her disappearance became one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. In a world where there were no longer any blank spots on the map, she seemed to vanish into thin air, leaving behind dozens of theories, hundreds of theories, and thousands of speculations. But what really happened? Why were traces of her plane lost among the waves? And most importantly, could there have been a force beyond human will at work in this story? Amelia Earhart was born in 1897, during an era when women were just beginning to fight for the right to vote, for the opportunity to choose their own path. She grew up stubborn, willful, and unconstrained. Her childhood was spent in constant pursuit of adventure. She climbed trees, fired a slingshot, sledded from rooftops, fell, got up, and pressed forward again. From the very beginning, Amelia seemed to sense that her destiny lay in movement. Her first encounter with the sky happened in 1920. Then, during an aviation exhibition, she boarded a small biplane and rose into the air for just a few minutes. But it was enough. "I realized," she later said, "that I had to fly." From that moment on, her life took on new meaning. She took lessons from female pilots, saved her money, worked as a nurse and social worker, but spent all her spare money on flight training. Soon, Earhart became a pilot herself and began competing in air races. She broke altitude, distance, and speed records, becoming the idol of an entire generation. But most importantly, she broke stereotypes. In a society where women were seen only as housewives, Amelia proved that the skies were open to everyone. In 1932, she accomplished what seemed impossible. She flew solo across the Atlantic Ocean. For 18 hours, she battled wind, cold, and fatigue. When her plane landed in Ireland, the whole world was talking about her. Amelia became a heroine. Her face appeared on magazine covers. Her words were quoted in newspapers. But she remained calm. "I'm not doing this for fame, but for a dream." Amelia's true dream was far grander. She wanted to fly around the world, proving that a woman could overcome any challenge, even the most dangerous routes. At the time, this was a challenge not only to technology, but also to fate. After all, a round-the-world flight involves thousands of kilometers over oceans, jungles, and deserts, where the slightest mistake could cost one's life. While preparing for her flight, Amelia often uttered cryptic phrases to her friends. "If I disappear, don't look for me long," or "let my journey be a symbol of my desire for freedom." It seems she sensed something unsettling in the air beforehand. Her loved ones recalled that in recent months, she seemed to have lost her former lightness, her gaze deepened, her speech more restrained. In June 1937, she set off on a Lockheed jet, Electra. Together with navigator Fred Noonan, she was to cross the entire globe. The route was carefully calculated, every stop planned. The world followed the flight with bated breath. Newspapers published daily reports, and radio stations broadcast her messages. At first, everything went according to plan. They crossed America, South America, Africa, and the Indian Ocean. The final, most difficult leg remained the flight across the Pacific Ocean. It was there, in the heart of a vast watery desert, that something happened that would change history forever. On July 2, 1937, Amelia's plane Earhart left Lae, a small airfield in New Guinea. Their destination was tiny Howland Island, a tiny speck in the middle of the ocean. The American ship Itzkasu awaited them there, providing communications and navigation. The flight promised to be challenging. The distance was over 4,000 kilometers, and precision was required to the extreme. At dawn, the radio was still working. Amelia reported the direction, the weather, and that they were continuing on their way. But the closer they got to their destination, the more alarmed her words became. "We should be near you, but we can't see the island." was one of the last messages the radio operators recorded. Then the broadcast ended. More Amelia's voice Earhart was never heard from again. Almost 90 years have passed since then. Expeditions have searched for the plane's wreckage. Historians have put forward theories. Writers have created legends. But the mystery remains unsolved. Some say her plane crashed into the ocean, swallowing her forever. Others claim she landed on an unnamed island and died there, never to receive help. Still others see the hand of secret services, politics, or even other forces in her disappearance. But anyway, Amelia's story, Earhart, became a legend of a woman who defied the heavens and time, but who herself became an eternal mystery. On July 2nd, 1937, dawn broke on a hot tropical morning. A silver Lockheed airplane sat at the Small Airport, the Electra. Its streamlined hull glittered in the sun's rays, and inside were instruments, maps, radios, and fuel tanks filled to the brim. Everything was ready for the most dangerous stage of the round-the-world flight. Amelia Earhart smiled for the photographers, but her eyes were serious. She knew a nearly 20-hour flight over the ocean lay ahead. There could be no mistake. Navigator Fred Noonan checked the charts, checked the compass, and calculated the course again and again. Their destination was Howland Island, a tiny strip of land just a few kilometers wide, lost in the Pacific Ocean. Finding it among thousands of kilometers of water was akin to a miracle. As the Electra's engines hummed and the plane slowly rolled onto the runway, locals waved. They didn't know it was the last time they'd see Amelia. At first, everything went according to plan. The radio operators on the Itskasu heard Earhart's messages. "We're heading east. The weather is clear. Everything is fine." Hours passed, the engines hummed, and the plane confidently cut through the air. But after a few hours, the first alarming notes appeared on the air. "We should be close by now, but we can't see the island." The radio operators tried to respond, giving coordinates, but the connection was getting worse. The radio signal was weakly penetrating the interference. At one point, Earhart transmitted, "We're flying at 2,000 feet, low on fuel." These words were her last. The official version is simple. The plane failed to find Howland Island, ran out of fuel, and crashed into the ocean. But if it were so straightforward, the mystery of the disappearance would not still exist. Dozens of planes and ships were dispatched to search for the Electra, and thousands of square kilometers of ocean were explored, but nothing was found. No wreckage, no traces of fuel, no bodies. Emptiness. This emptiness has given rise to hundreds of versions. Version 1. The ocean took its toll. The most common hypothesis is a crash landing on water. The vast ocean could have swallowed the plane instantly. But even so, researchers wonder, why, after decades, have they failed to find even a fragment of the skin? Modern expeditions have examined the seabed near Howland Island, but have found no trace. Some believe the current carried the plane to depths where it will never be recovered. Others, however, are convinced that the elements are not the only factor. Version 2. Nikumaroro Island, Troitarashomam. One of the most popular theories is that Amelia and Noonan landed on the coral island of Nikumaroro, located 600 kilometers from Howland. Archaeologists have indeed found mysterious artifacts on this island. Women's boots from the 1930s, knife fragments, a navigational instrument box, and even bones. DNA testing has yet to provide a definitive answer, but many are certain that these are Amelia's remains. Locals told a legend about a white woman and a sick man who had been seen on Nikumaroro, living briefly on the island before disappearing, but neither definitive evidence nor a complete picture were ever found. Version 3. Spy in the Pacific Ocean. Some researchers claim that Earhart's disappearance was no accident. They believe Amelia was on a secret mission for American intelligence, gathering information about Japanese bases in the Pacific. That's why her plane ended up not near Howland, but in the area of the Japanese-controlled islands. According to this theory, Earhart and Noonan were allegedly captured by the Japanese and died in captivity. Proponents of the theory cite old photographs showing a man and woman resembling the crew of the Electra. However, US and Japanese officials have refuted these speculations. Version 4. Ghosts of the Ocean. And here's where the truly mystical part of Amelia's story begins. Immediately after her disappearance, strange reports began to emerge. Radio operators at different ends of the Pacific Ocean claimed to hear fragments of signals. A female voice whispered, "We're here, we're lost." But no one could determine the source of the signal. A family on the island of Fiji claimed to have heard a cry for help on their radio for several days after Earhart's disappearance. But how could the signal have traveled so far and for so long if they were running out of fuel? Some sailors reported seeing a luminous plane flying low over the water that night. And Polynesian legends included a story of a woman who flew from the sky and went to sea. Amelia's story began to gather mystical interpretations. Some said she was caught in an anomaly similar to the Bermuda Triangle. Others said she fell victim to an ocean curse, an old belief that the ocean brooks no challenge and takes away those who try to conquer it. Her image began to appear in dreams, legends, and even in the minds of some researchers who claimed Amelia did not die, she simply passed into another dimension. Time passed, but the search yielded no results. The longer the ocean remained silent, the more theories arose. Rational explanations gave way to legends, rumors, and mystical conjectures. Version 5. Prisoners of a parallel world, of strange atmospheric phenomena in the area of Amelia's route. Radio operators recorded bursts of radio interference, and sailors reported shining clouds that appeared suddenly and vanished without a trace. Researchers of anomalous zones have suggested that Earhart may have entered some kind of energy corridor, a portal leading to another dimension. Proponents of this theory claim that this is precisely why her plane was never found. It didn't crash or sink, but simply vanished. Furthermore, there are accounts from travelers who allegedly saw in dreams or visions a woman in a flight suit wandering on an unnamed island that doesn't appear on any maps. They are certain this is Amelia, forever stuck between worlds. Version 6. Shadow from the future. Some mystics believe Earhart's disappearance was no accident, but part of some kind of plan. Legend has it that Amelia received a sign even before her final flight. Several months before her departure, she told friends about strange dreams. In them, she saw the ocean, moonlight, and her plane slowly sinking into the water. These dreams could have been a subconscious premonition or a warning, but Earhart didn't change her plans. It was as if she knew the end was inevitable. Some even claim that Amelia is a frontier and symbolic figure. It's as if she appeared in history to challenge the sky and disappear at a moment when humanity wasn't yet ready to conquer the elements. Version 7. Ghost Island. Polynesian sailors tell of a legendary moving island that periodically appears among the waves. It's like a mirage, sometimes visible, then disappearing into the mist. It is believed that those who land on this island never return. Some mystical researchers are certain that Amelia may have landed on this ghost island. There she remained, becoming part of the ocean's ancient mystery. Curiously, decades later, strange drawings were found on some Pacific islands. Figures of airplanes and female silhouettes were carved into the rocks. Scientists attributed this to the imagination of the locals, but mystics saw it as a sign. The memory of the visitor from the sky had been preserved. Version 8. The Curse of the Pacific Ocean. The ocean has long been known to dislike the daring. Sailors used to say that if a person defies the elements too confidently, the sea will surely take them. Amelia became a symbol of this audacity. The woman who decided to fly around the world alone challenged both the heavens and the ocean, according to legend, responded. Earhart disappeared. Residents of some atolls saw a bright column of light descending from the sky directly into the water. They took this as a sign the ocean had opened its gates to welcome those who had overstepped their bounds. Version 9. The woman who became a legend. Psychologists and philosophers view Earhart's disappearance not only as a historical mystery, but also as a symbol. She embodies the eternal human quest for the unknown, the desire to push the boundaries of possibility, even at the cost of one's life. Her disappearance seemed to complete her myth. After all, had Amelia landed safely in California, she would have become a newspaper heroine. But then her fame would have faded, As it was, she remained an eternal mystery, a symbol of the mysterious fusion of man and the indomitable elements. Mystical coincidences. The date of the disappearance is July 2nd. In some cultures, this is the day of the open gates, when the living and the dead cross a fine line. Coincidence? Flight during the full moon. Researchers have noticed that it is during this period that the ocean tides are at their strongest. Since ancient times, it has been believed that the full moon opens the way to other worlds. A voice on the air. Snippets of radio messages heard after the official time of her disappearance are still considered by many to be an echo of Amelia's soul lingering in space. Amelia Earhart became not just a person, but a myth. For some, she is a hero. For others, a symbol of tragedy. And for still others, a mysterious ghost of the ocean that still calls us into the unknown. And perhaps this is her true legacy. She showed that boundaries are only in our perception, and those who dare to cross them become part of eternity. Decades have passed since the last signal from Amelia's plane, Earhart, vanished into radio noise over the Pacific Ocean. It seemed like the story should have been closed. The pilot disappeared, his body never found, the official reports filed. But things turned out differently. Amelia's disappearance became one of the most enduring myths of the 20th century, and surprisingly, this myth continues to live on in the 21st. Why does her fate still concern millions of people around the world? The human mind is wired to abhor a vacuum. When an unanswered question arises, we tend to fill it with guesses, theories, and legends. Amelia's disappearance is the perfect basis for such fantasies. An unaccounted plane, an unaccounted body, radio signals fading into silence, traces on islands that seem to belong to her and yet seem not to. All these details turn the story into an endless puzzle, impossible to piece together. And therein lies her strength. After all, every era and every generation imposes its own interpretations on her. For some, Amelia is a victim of war. For others, a prisoner of a parallel world. For still others, she is a symbol of the eternal striving forward, no matter what. Earhart's fate contains traits characteristic of archetypal heroes, the path of the seeker. She embarks on a journey that goes beyond human capabilities, a trial by the elements, an encounter with the ocean, a symbolic image of chaos and the unknown. Disappearance. The hero doesn't die before people's eyes, but vanishes, leaving a mystery. This makes him eternal. It happened with Atlantis, with King Arthur, with the ghost ship Flying Dutchman, and it happened with Amelia Earhart. Now let's ask ourselves, what if there really is more to her disappearance than just an accident? What if the ocean really does harbor black holes that suck in planes and ships? What if her voice, picked up on radio frequencies days later, wasn't just technical noise, but a genuine cry from the heart, still echoing through the airwaves? What if the myth of the female pilot who disappeared under a full moon is a warning to us, our descendants, to remember? The boundaries of the world have not yet been fully explored. We can deny mysticism, we can seek rational explanations, but one only has to listen to the ocean's whisper at night, and doubts begin to melt away. In fact, Amelia's story is not only a mystery, but also a mirror. It reveals how humanity treats dreamers and pioneers. On the one hand, there's admiration, adoration, and adoration. On the other, there's fear, envy, and sometimes even a reluctance to understand. But it's precisely thanks to people like Amelia Earhart the world moves forward. They burn bridges and blaze new trails, sometimes at the cost of their lives. And this is her greatest legacy. She became a symbol of freedom, courage, and the pursuit of the impossible. The answer is simple, because deep down, we want to believe that she's out there somewhere, that her plane is parked on a nameless island, that Amelia herself lives in another dimension, looking at us with a smile. After all, if she disappeared without a trace, it means that for us too, there is hope for infinity, that death is not the end, but only a door. Sometimes radio operators claim to hear strange sounds on the airwaves, weak, intermittent, reminiscent of a female voice. Scientists attribute this to radio echo, or atmospheric interference. But those who believe in mysticism are certain it's Amelia continuing her flight, speaking to us across the decades. Friends, the legend of Amelia Earhart is more than a story. It's a reminder that boundaries exist only for those afraid to cross them. But for the brave, the world becomes a road. And perhaps that is why Amelia's name will live forever. Not in archives, not in reports, not in dry facts, but in our memories, in our dreams, and in our legends. And now the most important part. If this story resonates with you, if you enjoy these dives into the mysteries of the past, please support our channel. Subscribing is a sign that you, along with us, continue to search for answers in the darkness. A like is like a beacon in the ocean, helping us stay on course. And your comment is the voice that will keep this story from disappearing, just like Amelia did. Write down what you believe in: chance, conspiracy, or mysticism. Perhaps your version will be the one discussed next. After all, the secrets of the past live on as long as we tell them. And that means Amelia Earhart is still with us. In the sky, in the ocean, in every whisper of the wind, and in every mysterious light over the horizon.